Welcome to the Voice of Oneness, your call to awaken. This show is your call to awaken to the truth of your being through the teachings of the Voice of Oneness, spoken by Amara. On this show, you will receive spiritual guidance and the teachings of oneness from the heart of spirit directly to your heart, along with the tools and techniques to apply these teachings to your day-to-day life. Tuning in each week, you will grow in a deeper, richer understanding of your true nature as teachings are offered about universal spiritual laws that govern our lives. You will learn the right use and application of these laws to achieve the richest life from the perspective of experiencing abundance in all areas of your life. Amara Bonet is a renowned psychic, spiritual teacher, coach, energy healer, mystic, and gifted visionary who taps into the higher realms to join with the vast collective of source energy. Now, your host of Voice of Oneness, Amara Bonet.
Welcome all to the Voice of Oneness, your call to awaken, where each week we present an enlightening and thought-provoking podcast that serves individuals seeking a deeper connection to themselves, others, and the world through the teachings of oneness. Whether you're a seasoned spiritual seeker or someone just beginning their awakening journey, we offer a safe space for exploration, understanding, growth, and transformation. I am Amara Bonet, your host and presenter of the Voice of Oneness. Our theme tonight is living through the lens of oneness, moving beyond the divide. In this episode, we're going to explore the profound concept of living through the lens of oneness and moving through the divide. Together, we will uncover the transformative power of embracing oneness and guiding principle of our thoughts, actions, and interactions. And when I say moving beyond the great divide is that which separates us, the separation, the contrast to oneness. So moving through that in day-to-day life, we understand what oneness is conceptually, more than likely. I'm assuming that we do. So whether you're new to the concept of oneness or you've been exploring the depths for years, this episode offers profound insights, inspiration for living a more harmonious and fulfilling life. Join us now as we embark on this journey together. And I always like to begin I always select quotes because I like to begin that way. So the first quote I have is from Swami Vivekananda. And it's all differences in this world are of degree and not of kind, because oneness is the secret of everything. Oneness is the secret of everything. Albert Einstein puts it this way: our separation from each other is an optical illusion. An optical illusion. And then I want to move to Martin Luther King's famous quote about unity. He put it this way: we must learn to live together as brothers or perish together as fools. And then E.N. Gardner says, oneness with God is not a dream. It is the reality, the only reality. Everything else is an illusion. So when we talk about oneness, and the reason I came back to this topic and I added to it, because I did a podcast already on living life through the lens of oneness, but I'm going to come from a different angle tonight on this one, and add more to it. It's come up a lot in my sessions, and I always base everything that I want to do on this podcast on what's happening in the day-to-day lives of each of us. And what I find is that we have an understanding of oneness conceptually, but we do not necessarily embrace it and assimilate that within us, that knowledge, and then live life from that perspective. So, to begin tonight, I want to begin with a prayer that I wrote many years ago. So I'm going to say the prayer now. Our source is oneness. O source of infinite love, let your presence come alive within me, now that together we may shine your luminous light so brightly that all are drawn to ignite the flame within themselves of your ever-burning love. Let each being open to their expansion of cosmic consciousness. Did I mention that I'm having trouble talking today? So to uplift themselves and the collective conscious to greater and greater reflections of wholeness, where peace reigns and all are free, where love is the way expressed in every heart. Let all join in oneness. Oh, this is my prayer, infinite intelligence, God, creator of all that is. I know that it's done as my heart burns with love, my consciousness illumined by your light, and my experience is of your will be done in the joyful expanse of eternal oneness. We dance as one. Amen. So if I were to ask the question now, if I were to ask all who's listening, just a quick question, what is oneness? I would more than likely get the response that it is the interconnectedness of all things. And while that is true, it is much more than that. And when we acknowledge that it's the interconnectedness of all things, conceptually, once again, we have to ask ourselves, are we living that awareness, the interconnectedness of all things, not just the things I like, not just the people who look like me, or the people who share my belief systems, but not just the animals I like. I love dogs, but all other animals, forget them. It's all animals. It's all peoples. It's all belief systems. It's the interconnectedness that we cannot undo because we didn't do it. We were created as part of the whole. We are individuated aspects of the consciousness of the source of which created us. That source I call God or Creator. If those words do not resonate with you, but you have the conceptual understanding and belief of a source, substitute whatever word you need to. But I use the term God and I use the term Creator. All coming forth from God, from the mind of God. So the mind of God created all that is, all of creation, to experience itself as life. It took a breath out, and in that out breath, creation was formed. And we, as sparks of God consciousness, hold that which is of God, making us of God, with this same ability to create and to experience ourselves as that which we are, which is love. So we came into a world, I like to call it the game board of life. We came into the realm here of Earth as very light beings, very light from our very beginning here on this planet, our very beginning of our journey together with Gaia, Mother Earth. We came as very light in body. And we then, through different experiences that we had in this world, with the 5 senses, the human condition, we became entangled in this lower density, and we began to de-evolve instead of evolve. And this went on. We could take it from the very beginning to the present day. So here we are in the present day experiencing life as it is, and we're experiencing contrast. We're in a field of duality, and we are in this field to experience the contrast that exists so that we can make choices that lead us back to the remembrance of that which we are, which we have truly never left. That's the greater part of us that exists in a non-physical. What exists within these bodies that we're occupying at this time, our human body, our human story, our human experiences, are not the totality of our beingness. We hold the greater portion of that which we are in non-physical. So we here are a portion of the soul, but we're not the totality. So we are having human experiences, and our experiences filter back to the non-physical, and then the non-physical filters back to us all the time. There's a stream of continuous dialogue that takes place, but we may not recognize that. We may not be aware of that. We may be so dialed into our physical body and our physical conditions and that which we see with our physical eyes that we are not connecting to that which we are, the source within us. We're too focused on the external world, on the conditions. And many of us are living from that perspective. Some are beginning to wake up to there is much more to be realized than what we believed. There's much more. We are not our physical bodies. We are not the home which we live in. We are not the bank account. We're not the friends. We're not the partners. We're not what somebody says about us. We are spirit. We are love. We are divine. And some of us are beginning to wake up to that, to different degrees of awareness. And others of us are not yet awake, are not even beginning to scratch the surface of moving in the direction of love. Where some of us are at a point of experiencing this life from their choices, and we're choosing that which is outside of love. And what's outside of love is fear. So we're making choices from the energy of fear. And then we're going deeper into that and deeper into that. So it exists very much and very on the surface today in our world. The energy of fear and the energy of love is present as well. We have to look to the love or look to the fear. But we recognize when we are in the field of love that fear exists because of the interconnectedness of that which we are. We can sense, we can feel, we know that fear exists. Those that are living in fear, depending on how into that energy one has expressed, the deeper and deeper we go into it, the darker and darker it becomes, are not necessarily recognizing that there is love. Recognizing that that which is outside of fear is that which is the adversary, that's the opponent. That's not what's accepted, but that's what we rally against when we are in fear. So one way to recognize when we are having a conversation, perhaps, or we are working with someone, or we are around the energy of someone, and that energy, we have a feeling about it, maybe, and it feels kind of intense. And then if we start a conversation, and in that conversation, we happen to say something that is not aligned with the one in fear's belief, fear will always immediately attack. It will attack us personally. It will attack other members of our family, other members of our social circle. It will attack our belief systems. It will always lash out immediately and attack, verbally or physically. It will attack because that's all it knows. It's got to do away with its opposite, with the contrast, okay? Because it's not in recognition of love. But when we are in recognition of love and we are having the conversation with fear and fear lashes out, we have the capacity within us to recognize that as fear and say, isn't that interesting? And let it go. And we can walk away, or we can approach from a different conversation, change the conversation, and not try to engage with the energy of fear to help fear to see the perspective of love. Because fear must choose that which it wants to experience. And if it's deep in fear, it's going to stay deep in fear until something happens to bring it out of that. And that may not be this lifetime. That may not be through what we're experiencing right now in this world, but it will eventually be. But we want to recognize the oneness, understanding that we are all interconnected. We cannot separate from one another. We can't say, you go over there and I'm over here, and we are not connected in any way. We can say, I choose not to engage in what you're doing. I choose differently. I choose love. You're choosing fear. So you go on your way. Bless you. You have a good life. And I'm going to go over here. That's done with an open heart and realizing that we are connected. So then, as one experiencing the oneness and in love, then we can pray for those that are in fear. We can hold the vision in our mind of the world that opens to love, to exist in the field of that which our greater perspective is experiencing. We can choose that, and that's how we move deeper and deeper into the field of love. We then are returning to our oneness. So for that, I wanted to begin here also, as these are challenging times, but it's all about remembering our true self. And so many people are so concerned over what's going to happen next and what's going to happen with digital currency and what's going to happen, who's going to be the next president, and what's the government going to be like, and all on and on and on and on. And that is a distraction. That is such a forceful distraction. For our purpose here on this earth is to remember that we are love. It's for us to remember through the living of life and the interrelationships we have with one another and the experiencing of the contrast that exists in our world. So we get to choose love. But in order to do that, we must be able to self-reflect. We must be able to step back and look at what's happening inside of us, not what's happening in the government, not what's happening. And that's not to say that you don't pay attention of what's going on in your environment. We all need to pay attention, and we all need to take action where action is necessary. But it's done from the perspective of living through the lens of oneness, realizing that this is the play of the contrast. This must take place at this time, for we have started to awaken. Once we've started to awaken, now that momentum's going to continue. So we're going to go deeper and deeper and deeper into that awakening. And then we're going to move our consciousness from the lower density up into the higher fields of density, where love is all that exists. And those that are choosing the fear, that have not yet awakened to the truth of their being, will remain in the lower frequency and the lower density. So we get to experience on the same planet, we get to experience life from a different perspective. We get to experience a different life. We get to choose what our experience is. We are not in a lower density vibration of what we call victimhood. We're not in that density of believing that we are a victim to circumstances created by whomever. We are not a victim. We understand that we are all interconnected, that we are all experiencing life for the purpose of returning to oneness. Some are a little further along than others. Doesn't make anybody better than anyone else. We are all children of God. We are all of the one source. Even if we are choosing to go in the opposite direction, we can choose that. That's our choice. And if we become so entrenched in that fear, in that darker space, then that's of our own hand, our own choosing. And it's very difficult and challenging at this time, because we've been in this energy for quite a long time. And this energy is a force that seeks to hijack us from our mind's perspective and not have us evolve in the light, not evolve back to the oneness, but be enslaved by the fear. So there's two parts to this game. There's that which is seeking the enslavement and that which is seeking the freedom. And both have a space on this game board of life. And we get to choose what we wish to experience in this life. And that's for us to choose our own doing. We look at the Lakota Sioux, and they have a prayer, the Mira Koya O Asen, and it means all my relations, not the relations on my mother's side, on my father's side, but all relations, relationship to all of creation. So Lakota Sioux, very grounded in oneness, living from that field of love in reverence for life, is an example existing on this earth of oneness expressed. That around us, we're always giving examples. We're given examples so that we can choose. We're given examples of those that are choosing behaviors that are horrific, as opposed to those that are choosing behaviors that are highly evolved and in the highest interest of all. Both energies exist at the same time on the same game board, but we get to choose. And I want to look through the lens of oneness from quantum physics perspective. The concept of oneness or interconnectedness finds intriguing parallels. Let's look to entanglement. Quantum entanglement, is a phenomenon where two or more particles become connected in such a way that the state of one particle instantly influences the state of another, regardless of the distance between them. Distance doesn't matter. Walls don't matter. Boundary lines in the sand don't matter. The particles impact one another. They influence the state of one another. So if we're in a space, we're in a room, and if somebody walks in and they're in a highly agitated state and they're very angry or enraged, we could be sitting in that room and we're not sharing that anger, but because that anger comes into the space, now we are impacted by it. Now we are thrown off balance. And we must then, within ourselves, choose, do I want to move within that energy, or do I want to ground myself and bring myself back into balance? And if I want to do that, I have to have the skill set to do that, which means I have to work at that. That's a practice. I have to practice that every day, because this world certainly is going to throw us off balance. We're not all walking around when we are of that higher expression of consciousness where we are not affected by the whole, because we're all connected. But when we are affected, we can instantly shift the energy so that the physical experience, our human experience, does not have power over us. We master it. We have power over the physical. We draw on our spiritual presence. We draw on that which we are, that which holds the greater perspective of that which we are. We align with the divine. We align with the God within. We align with our soul. We connect to feel from our heart what is the direction for us. We are grounding ourselves, acknowledging the earth as a super consciousness. She's a living being. Acknowledge her, speak to her, walk barefoot on her belly, so to speak. Draw in the energies, have an experience. We all can have an experience of when we go to the ocean and we walk on the beach and we experience the energy and the frequency there. It's very cleansing, very balancing. When we go into a forest, it's very cleansing, it's very balancing. But if we're walking down the street of a major city that's in an upheaval, that's not very cleansing nor balancing, is it? And the very energy of that will send us in a tailspin. And when we are sent in that tailspin, we can breathe it in, and then we can work to release it, breathe it out, say, I recognize this, I know what this is, and I choose love. I choose to ground myself here. I choose to look at what I'm seeing and realize that these conditions are taking place because this is the necessary contrast on this game board. And then I can say to myself, how is it I want to roll the dice today? What do I want to do? How do I want to move around the board? Am I witnessing something that I'm seeing and it's disturbing me to my core and I am compelled to take some sort of action? And then I sit back and I take it into my meditation and I ask the question to my soul, how may I best serve in this situation? And then I sit patiently and I wait. And something may come in that meditation, or it may come later in that day, or it may come a week later, or it may come in the shower, but it'll come. But I don't go charging in to the situation, which is a lower frequency energy, and try to change it with brute force. Why do I not do that? Because that's a lower frequency. And what do I know about the frequency of fear, the power of fear? It will push back big time. So I won't gain anything from doing that. More than likely, I'm going to be harmed by it. Now, that is not to say that we don't ground ourselves and we don't recognize dangers around us and take preventative actions to avoid engaging in certain situations with certain individuals. But if the certain situation occurs, then we've got to respond to it. And then somebody will always say to me, well, I've got to protect myself at all times because this energy is out there and I've got to protect myself and I've got to protect myself and I've got to protect myself and I've got to call this one in and that one in and burn these candles and do this and do that. When we're doing that, we're putting our focus on that energy. We're feeding it and we are in fear without realizing it. We've lowered our frequency. We want to do the opposite. We want to raise the frequency. We want to live through the lens of oneness, realizing that we are all one, interconnected, and that each one of us is responsible for management of our own energy. And we want to manage our energy in a way that works for us and the highest good of all. And we do that by realizing that that fear exists in the world, but we hold a vision of a higher plane. We place ourselves in the field of love. We place ourselves in each and every breath in that field of love. We express loving kindness. We express to the best of our ability, wherever we are in our level of awareness, compassion. We do not rally against the opposing force. That is not the way that we make ground here. That's not the way that we continue our great awakening. That's the way that we are drawn in and we are hijacked once again. So it's very important that we realize this and that we do our best based on what our choice is. If we want to stay with the fear, it feels good to us, that's what we want, we stay there. We play within it. Go round and round. We all have been there, we all can do it. But if we want to choose the higher consciousness, we want to move within this awakening, we have the opportunity to do so now with a quickening of speed that was not present before. Because more and more of us have begun this awakening or are deep into it, that energy is impacting the field of which we are all connected. So it creates that resonance within the field for us to step into and to begin to experience, and draws others who are on the cusp, so to speak, of which way do I go? What do I do? What is it I believe? I'm not sure. And then they start to look in the direction of love. And then they start to experience it. And then they start to decide where they want to be. What is their choice? And that's living life through the lens of the oneness of that which we are. Realizing that we are spirit, we are divine, we've come from one source. Our origin is from that source. That's not to say that there's not energy on this planet that is holding within energy that is in such opposition to the source that it's created its own field, so to speak. And that's what we're experiencing as contrast on this board at this time in the game of life. And I don't want to go too into detail because that's not what the theme of this podcast is about. But we want to look towards the future we want to experience and the now we want to experience. We want to get out of bed in the morning, close the eyes, and envision the day you want to have. And you take a moment and you breathe it in and you say, I can do this because it's within my power. I have the power to create, and I decide. I make the choices of the direction of which I head this day. And then we go within that energy and we flow with that energy. That makes a big difference in the experience that we have on this board. That makes the difference of how we are going to be impacted by the events that occur. Everyone is always in the right place at the right time. And that sounds twisted because we think, how could somebody who is in a place that is experiencing trauma or experiencing a natural disaster be in the right place at the right time? Because everything is precisely orchestrated in our experience of life. We have a date of which we are born, and we have a time of which we are to cross, to transition. That does not mean that we die, because we never die. We are, first and foremost, energetic beings. What do we know about energy? Energy is neither created nor destroyed. It comes into form and out of form. So we come into form, we incarnate, and we come out of form, we go back to spirit. But our life continues. We go back into the sea of consciousness. We continue. There is life and only life. So when things are happening in our life and we are getting fearful, fearing that we are coming to the end of life, it's because we're fearing that this human experience is going to be completed. We're fearing pain. We don't want to experience pain. We're fearing the loss of the loved ones that we're around. We're experiencing the emotions of the human experience. But if we were of the consciousness that we say, okay, now is my time to make my transition. And I know that all that's around me, all my loved ones will join me when it is their time. But it's my time now. And I go freely and allow it to be. Then there's no resistance and we just continue without adding to the fear energy that exists in our world. I hope that makes sense. It sounds to some people like, oh my gosh, that's kind of cold. It's not cold. It's acknowledging, and it's in reverence of life, the life of that which we are, which is divine, and it has no end and no beginning. It simply is. We arise from a sea of consciousness. We're awareness. We're born into this field to experience life to return to the oneness of that which we are. And we do that through living that which we are not. That's the contrast. And then we get to choose, and we start to move in a different direction. So that's quantum entanglement is telling us that the particles are influenced by one another, instantly influences the state of another. And we do that every day without realizing that entanglement is taking place. And some of us will, and I can't tell you, I wish I, had a penny for every time someone said, tell me what to do with this negative person that's around me. I can't take their energy anymore. They're bringing me down. They're bringing you down because we're all interconnected. You feel their pain. You feel their confusion. And it's hitting a point within you that's saying to you, you need to shore up here. You've going towards their energy. You're allowing them to pull you in. Bring yourself back to center. Remind yourself of who you are. Remind yourself that you hold the capacity to raise the frequency in the field between you and that individual. You choose love. You choose peace. You choose not to enter into arguments to try to prove that where you are in your love, where you are in your awareness, where you are in your awakening is where they need to come. That's simply not true. They need to be right where they are. For if they didn't, they'd be right in the same awareness as you. What we need to do when you are holding this awareness, what you need to do there is recognize that. Recognize that you have the right to where you are, and the person whom's before you that you are defining as negative has the right to be right where they are. Not once you release the definition of negative being from them, you're not condemning them, you're not holding them to that. You're realizing that they simply do not hold the same level of awareness that you do. It's a matter of levels of awareness. My brother, we're all brothers in this experience, whether we're male or female. This is not a gender issue. We are all brothers in oneness. My brother is of a lesser awareness. They are hurting. They are confused. And as much as our healer hearts want to take that from them, want them to embrace the oneness, want them to open up, that's not what we're to do. We're to allow them to unfold in their own design. We try to jump in and make things better. We try to fix things. We try to get others to see a point of view that they're not ready to see. Some listening to this podcast will be, oh no, I don't get any. This is just a bunch of, BS, and others go, oh, this resonates. I understand this. This is helping me where I am to go deeper. And it's going to lead me to my next revelation. And you just move forward with it. There's the difference. So we can only take on in we call this body, this container, that which we have space for. As we're growing and learning and we're filling and we're filling and we're filling, we fill to overflow, but we can't take any more in if we stay with what we think we know and what we believe, and we start to give dictates about how things should be based on what we're holding in our container. We are then tethering ourselves to that position, and we cannot lift off and move into the freedom of that which is ours to experience. We are to recognize that I hold a position, I hold a belief, and it's gotten me this far. But I choose now to open my heart and entertain possibilities of expansion. am tipping over my cup, so to speak, and allowing some to spill out so that there's room for more to come in. So I can take the concept of oneness as interconnectedness of all things, which is my basic fundamental understanding of it, and allow myself to open to go deeper within it so that my understanding of oneness grows. But if I stay with it's just the interconnectedness of all things, and then I move on from there, and I keep living my life in separation, I keep believing that there are those that are the negative ones, and then there's me over here who's a positive one, and there should be more like me. And what happens is we stay right there. We don't grow. And the object of the game is to grow on this board, to grow into the recognition, the remembrance that we are one. We are one. And to live it, to live from that. So when we say it's the interconnectedness of all things, remember all have all pop out at you in your mind. All things, all things, all things, all things. Doesn't mean that I have to accept all things. If someone is behaving horrifically, I'm not going to condone their behavior. I'm going to understand it as theirs. I'm going to say that's their level of awareness. I'm going to remove myself from the situation, and I'm going to envision the world where we are together, that individual and myself, and we're living from the field of love. I'm going to put my sight there. I'm not going to allow myself to be drawn in. I hope that makes sense. So that's entanglement. So entanglement tells us there are no true boundaries. There are no true divisions. We impact one another all the time. Then we go to non-locality. Quantum physics challenges the classic idea of locality, where events are influenced by the immediate surroundings. Instead, quantum particles can be entangled in a non-local way, affecting each other's state regardless of distance. This implies a deeper underlying unity in the fabric of reality. It's the entanglement. There's a unity in the fabric of reality. It plays out in all areas all the time. Working with somebody recently, and they're having some changes at work, and they're changing some of the ways that they do things, and they were highly competent, highly efficient, and now they're starting to doubt themselves. They're in self-doubt, and they're saying, the joy to my job is gone. I don't feel that connection anymore. And I said, okay, well, let's look at what's going on in the world around us. We are in that interconnectedness of the oneness of that which we are. We have the collective soup. That is what we all draw from. That's our collective consciousness, our race consciousness. What's going on in the race consciousness? We are in a deep, deep divide. Things are changing. Things are changing rapidly. So we are feeling within that consciousness the change. We're feeling unsettled. We're feeling uncertain, not knowing what's going to happen next. We're feeling the chaos. We're feeling that we are not in control. So how it's impacting this individual in her work life experience is she's beginning to pick up those thoughts. They're coming into her head. She recognizes them. As somebody who self-reflects, oh my gosh, this usually is not my thought. What's going on here? Why am I thinking these thoughts? This is why, because we've connected with that fear-based energy from the collective. So we want to say, okay, that's what it is. Now I know. Now I need to do some self-talk. I've got to talk myself through it. I've got to say, this is what's happening within my mind based on what energy I'm holding. I'm subscribing now to the belief that everything is chaotic and out of control. Is that true? It appears to be from the physical eyes, but what about those around me who are balanced and who are peaceful and who are calm and who are living their life and experiencing the joys of life and not seeing the darkness, the ugliness, not living in that space? What about them? We're all children of the same God. We're all part of the whole, different individuated aspects. So what one of us does, it's available to all of us if we choose it. And when we choose it, when it's right for us. So by choosing that, say, I choose to move within the energy of love. I choose to express joy. I choose to say, okay, things are changing and I'm having so much fun in this change. And I know I can do change because I've done change up until this point in my life. How many changes have I experienced? Let me go through them and start. Did I change? I moved from one house to another, from one state to another, from one job to another. I went through school. I moved from one level to another. I've done change. I can do change. Change can be exciting. And we just shift it. We shift the perspective. We just pivot a little bit. And all of a sudden, we create a whole different view. And then we begin living from that view. Our life is enhanced. We then step into the higher frequencies and we move closer and closer then to the oneness of that which we are. And we have another perspective here from quantum physics, which is the wave-particle duality. Now, there's either waves or particles. Waves or particles. So this is the wave-particle duality. Behavior of particles on the quantum level can exhibit both particle-like and wave-like properties. So it can exist both. We can exist also within ourselves. We can experience the darker side of ourselves or the lighter side of ourselves. We hold both properties within us until we fully merge back into the oneness. The duality suggests that the particles are not separate, distinct entities, but rather manifestations of the underlying wave function. The blurring of boundaries resonates with the concept of oneness, where distinctions between individual entities become less defined. Less defined. So particles are not separate, not distinct entities. And when we observe something, we realize through science that when we observe the particle, then it turns into the wave. We have to have an observer. We have to have the presence there in order to experience. So we are not separate. We are very much entangled. We are very much interconnected. Then we have the Earth systems. If we look at science, science demonstrates the various systems such as the water cycle, the carbon cycle, the climate cycle, all interconnected and all influence one another. They cannot be in isolation. A difference to one system will trigger a difference in the effects of the others. We look at body, mind, spirit, and we realize that there's no separation between the functioning of these systems. When my mind is holding thoughts that are out of alignment with love, my body is going to manifest the outcome. My mind, my body, my spirit is ill. I'm not functioning in the wellness of my spirit. It's manifesting in my physical body because they're all connected. The organs and systems of our body, the chakra systems of our body are all interconnected. One of our chakras goes out of balance, the others follow. We must balance always each of our energy centers. When one goes out of balance, the others are starting to go out of balance. We're wobbling. We've got to come back into balance. And the universe, that which is around us and that which is within us, will always speak to us, calling us back into balance. It's for us to hear the message. It's for us to understand what is being said. It's for us to take a look through the lens of oneness. There's so much to say on this, and I feel like I just scratched the surface, but I really, really, really want to put forth that we are all interconnected. We are not separate. We are not divided by party lines. We are not red and blue. We are not divided by gender. We are not divided by political beliefs, by any belief. We are not divided unless we choose it, unless we choose to be. Then we can be as much as we want. But we are not divided. We are interconnected. We are part of the same whole. We impact one another. Our unsettlement in our belief system at this current time impacts everything in all of creation. Everything in all of creation. So when we are wanting to grow and expand, and we are wanting to be recognized as one, we're wanting to be recognized equally, we don't come out and look to overpower one another. We don't push our beliefs down someone's throat to get them to believe like we want them to believe. If we want to do with our bodies something we want to do, we are permitted to do whatever we want to do as long as we harm no one. As long as we harm no one. Do as you want as long as you harm no one. You want more universal acceptance? Pray for it. Vision it. Use your God-given power as a creator being to bring it about in the world through the proper channels that you are creating in alignment with love, not misaligned. Misaligned brings us further down, and it creates war and divisiveness, which we're seeing now. We got a chance to clean this up. We got a chance to choose love. We got a chance to live within the lens of oneness and move beyond this divide. Those of us that have that awareness at this time, this is the calling. This is the call to awaken even deeper. It's up to us to choose. I pray that we choose unity. And I know that that outcome exists already. But just how quickly we bring ourselves there, that's what's in play here. So I want to end with, we are all love, created as love, by love, to experience love. The truth is for all, not for some. And it becomes self-evident whenever we step outside of the field of love. We will always experience pain and suffering. If we're wanting someone to accept us the way we are, and we're pushing hard to get accepted, and we're not experiencing acceptance, we're in pain. So when we're outside of love, we will always experience pain. Live the fruits of the Spirit, shine brightly for all to see, hold the light for those who have yet to realize that they too are the light. Live your life through the lens of oneness. Realize that we are all interconnected. Every thought, word, and deed is recorded. There are no secrets on this planet, in this universe, or any of the universes. Everything is known. So be authentic, be true, live from your heart as love, and experience the oneness of that which we are in the most beautiful unfoldment of life. And so it is. Thank you for joining me. Good night.
The truth is here and now on WLTKDB Talk Radio at WLTKDB.com.